Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Humza Yousaf has refused to say how much it will cost the people of Scotland for him to take the UK government to court over the use of the Section 35 over the Gender Reform Bill. He has said that he will reveal the costs after the court case. So he's basically writing an open cheque for himself to proceed with a court case he's been told he's very unlikely to ever win. He is wasting money and he does not even have the honesty or the balls to say how much money he's going to waste in advance of him wasting it. And he will have an idea. The solicitors will have told him it will cost him X, Y or Z amount of pounds. And when I say cost him, I mean, of course, cost Scotland, because he isn't paying for this personally. I think any politician who does this, who's been told in advance by the legal sort of experts that they're likely to lose, and yet who push on with it anyway, should they lose, they personally should be liable for costs. If that was the case, let me tell you, he would not be proceeding with this case. But hey, he's not paying, you are, and so that's fine. It's just so he can distract you all from the problems the SNP are having. So we'll have a look at this article, see what's going on, see why he will not release the costs, will not release either the legal advice. This has been asked for under a Freedom of Information Act, and yet he refuses to release that, claiming it's an ongoing case. No, this has got nothing to do with the case. The legal advice you were given will not affect the outcome of that case. It's just you're too ashamed to release it, aren't you, Humza? Anyway, here's the article. Let's go. So, Humza Yousaf refuses to reveal the cost of gender reform battle until after the final verdict. I think the final verdict will be that he is a complete failure and needs to leave office. And then we bill him with the 250 to a million, up to £1 million in legal fees that he's likely to spend. Humza Yousaf is taking the UK government to court, but has refused to state how much the controversial decision will cost, although the last legal battle cost the taxpayer more than £250,000. Money that could be spent better, money that could be spent where it's more needed, like social care, education, health service, anything. Anything is better than making his fat, sleek, greedy lawyer friends slightly richer. Taxpayers won't find out the final cost of the hotly contested gender legal battle until after the verdict, says Humza Yousaf. If he's not prepared to release this in advance, why is he allowed to actually to go ahead and do it? This is public money. This should be declared prior to the case beginning so that he can convince people that it is a worthy cause and it isn't a complete waste of money. And as he releases that cost, he also should release the legal advice he was given. He's not doing that for either of them because he is frit. The Scottish Government spent more than £250,000 on their failed 2-day Supreme Court case about holding another independence referendum. And with the Section 35 fight low on the list of priorities for Scots, the First Minister has come under pressure to reveal just how much he intends to spend from the public purse. Since announcing the SNP's intention to contest the UK government veto of the Gender Recognition Reform Bill on women's equality grounds, 2 former judges have said it will be a waste of cash and the weak argument is likely to fail. These are top judges telling him in advance it's weak and it will fail, and yet he's still proceeding with it because either he's happy to waste people's cash, B, he's a moron, or C, he's doing it to distract people from the other problems the SNP has got. Let me tell you, I have got 50 stories on the SNP. One court case where he's wasting money isn't going to deflect anyone. The First Minister said he's received legal advice on the worst case scenario figure, but added the costs cannot be made absolutely transparent until the verdict is in. That is a lie. He can announce that the cost in the worst case scenario it will cost up to, and then announce that figure is it's the worst case, but it will cost up to this amount of money, and then ask people, is it worth it to do this, to spend that money on a case he knows he cannot possibly win? The Scottish Government claims the bill would simplify the process trans people go through to obtain legal recognition in their preferred gender. However, there is concern that this will erode single-sex protection for women and girls that are guaranteed by the UK Equality Act 2010. This act has got nothing to do with anything like that. This was brought in by the Greens, one of their mad, lunatic policies that they're demanding and that the SNP has to go along with if they want to stay in power. But this does nothing for women. This does not protect women. What they are saying is that they are basically giving cross-dressing men with mental conditions the right to access single-sex places such as our crisis centres, DV refuges, things like that. But also on a smaller scale, swimming pool, changing rooms, sports changing rooms in shops, where women and young girls may be present, and where a man who has not yet had the full surgery may be happily exposing himself to children in a changing room, but claiming he's a lady, and that huge dangling thing is his lady penis. And they're saying that is absolutely correct. Now, I will point out that in general population in prisons, about 6% of the population are in for some kind of sexual crime. But when it comes to the trans people in prison, it isn't 6%, it's 60%. So trans people apparently are 10 times more likely to be sexual offenders than non-trans people. And yet these are exactly the kind of people that the SNP want to allow in to areas where there are vulnerable women and children. So you have to ask, why are they trying to do this? Now, we know that both the SNP and the Greens are far left wing, and we do know that the left has this obsession with children, and they're trying to normalise the P word. You're thinking Gary Glitter, you're thinking Jimmy Savile. They want to kind of normalise that kind of behaviour at the left. And it is very, very worrying that the SNP are going along with this, and that they want these kind of people to be able to have access to vulnerable women and to children. Putting men, auras of women, into a prison with women is equivalent of putting a fox in the hen house. And it is just clearly wrong. It's what 99% of people around the world think is wrong. And yet they're pushing it because they don't have the balls to say no to the Greens. And that is the trouble. The SNP leadership doesn't have a spine. And the other side of the coin on this, of course, is that the trans, and I use the word trans, sometimes the victims of the trans lobby, that they may be gay, and they may be struggling mentally with being gay. It's an issue, especially in the young. And they don't really want to admit that they're gay. And so you're going to have this trans lobby going, well, no, you're not gay, you're just trans. And they push them down this one-way street where there's medication is taken and surgery is sometimes given. And it's life-changing. It's irreversible. You are sterilising children on a mass scale. But without psychiatric evaluation, you don't know that child is trans. That child may be the victim of abuse, may be gay and can't handle it, may be other underlying issues that a psychiatrist could get to and help that child without having to go down a one-way street of medication and surgery. And then obviously, and I've mentioned this before about the parents, that sometimes it's a bit trendy and they want a trans child and they push a child down this. And it's called Transhausens. It's like Munchausen's, but it's the parents forcing a child with a slight, a very slight differential. Oh, you must be trans, and do this, and put a boy in a dress and let him grow his hair long and call him Shirley. It's abuse. It is quite clearly abuse. And any parent doing this needs to be evaluated. That child needs to be evaluated. And if the parents are doing it and that child isn't transgender, isn't dysphoric, the child needs to be taken away from those parents, and those parents need to be jailed for abuse. It is quite clearly happening. And anyone who says it isn't is a liar or is very deeply mistaken at best. And so this push by the SNP to push this law doesn't protect vulnerable children who could be pushed down this trans line. Now, I mean, when you're talking thousands of children being systemically sterilised, you're getting into the sort of the area that was very popular in the 30s in Germany. We all know the special camps that they had, where they did an awful lot of sterilising children on an industrial scale. And that's That's the SNP through and through by pushing this bill. Anyway, carrying on. A poll in December found opposition to key elements of the bill, such as the scrapping of the requirement of a medical diagnosis and the lowering of the age from 18 to 16. And then that's another article, the SNP saying that someone is wise enough and mature enough to make a decision like this at 16, and yet they're letting people out of prison and away from R-ing children, abusing children at 25 because they're not mature enough to understand the consequences. Well, I'm afraid you can't have it both ways. And if 25 seems to be the cut-off of when a brain is developed enough to know what it's doing is right or wrong, then let's make the age of consent for going through transgender processing 25. And let's be consistent with your ageing here. Come on, SNP, you know you can do this. More opinion data from February revealed that only 3% of the population rate the GRR among the most important issues to them. And that will be those who suffer from this mental illness and the families of those who suffer from this mental illness and those who are pushing an agenda like the Greens and the very far left, who don't necessarily believe in it but want to push it so that they can start to salami slice towards the normalisation of P with children, because that's the direction of travel for the left. Speaking to the press while visiting a nursery in Glasgow, Mr Yousaf said he can't go into detail of the cost because it is part of the legal advice that doesn't have to be disclosed. Bullshit. The cost of the legal advice is not part of the legal advice. You go to them, you ask for legal advice, they go, that's the legal advice, and there's your bill. They're two separate things. Now, he also said, asked if he'd been given a worst case scenario of the cost. He said, of course, but yet I don't go into legal advice in terms of what the court cost of the case may be, because he's frightened. He's frightened to tell the people of Scotland how much he is going to waste, because he knows it's a lot and it's going to be terrifying. Of course, if he wins, he's fine. It doesn't matter. Yes, it's cost us this, but we made a victory. But he's not going to win, and he knows he's not going to win because he's asked for that legal advice, and that legal advice will undoubtedly have been, no, don't take this case on. You can't win. He said, but of course, at the conclusion of that court case, we will make those figures absolutely public and absolutely transparent. And I hope at the same time you release the legal advice. And if it is shown that the legal advice is don't take this case, and you've got the bill and let's say it's £500,000, the SNP or you personally needs to be personally liable for that £500,000 bill, because otherwise that will be misuse of public funds. That is a crime, and you could end up in Barlinnie. And to be fair, you could be in a cell with Nicola Sturgeon should she go and get her gender changed. Or if you want to go the other way, you can pretend to be a lady and you can spend a few nights in a cell with Nicola. You'd both enjoy that, I think. Her less so. And I want to thank Robert Wilson for bringing that point up. He made a comment in a previous video mentioning this. And he asked me to mention it. I said I will, and I do that because I value the input from my loyal viewers and anyone who comments. I do read the comments. Can't necessarily answer to all of them. There's so many, but I pick a few and I do answer and I do highlight. But they do come up. And talking coming up, I will come up. We will go to the round off this video. So why is he being so coy? Why is he hiding the legal costs? Why is he hiding the legal advice? I don't think there's much of a mystery here. I think we all know the answer to both those questions. One, because they're excruciatingly high, and B, because it's excruciatingly embarrassing. He has undoubtedly been told it will cost you an awful lot of money and you've got zero chance of winning. And of course, he cannot say in advance that this is the case because he knows that he would then be forced to abandon it. And to abandon it would mean that the Greens would go all off in a little tizzy fit, stamp their tiny little feet and walk away from government. They won't, because they're too enamoured with the power. It's just the threat they have. But being a moron, Humza Yousaf doesn't see this. And so he is going to go and basically wank away up to £1 million of public money, despite knowing he can't win. And that is a crime. And I do hope that the moment he releases those figures and releases the legal advice, he is then personally prosecuted for that money, because undoubtedly it will have ultimately been his decision to do this, so he should be liable. And I'd like to see that case. That would be the case of the century, where a politician becomes personally liable for actions performed in government. it would sort of concentrate the minds of all the others. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see and hear on the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Please do. It makes us louder. The more subscribers we have, the more the YouTube algorithm throws out the videos, the more people see what exactly is going on with the SNP, the abuses of power and the corruption and the stupidity. And in many cases, a lot of what they do is just down to stupidity. So do please subscribe. And also like and share the video. And if you've got any comments, I do read them. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, don't waste money on court cases you cannot possibly win, and goodbye.